in that meeting with him? Was it
myself,
him?
my agent Don Buchwald,
right.
Sandy Gallen, a very well-known, at that point, he had a production company with Dolly Parton,
right,
called Sand Dollar, and he was a famous manager and things like that, you know. And Michael, and that was it. That was the four of us in that meeting. I don't remember anybody else being there.
Did he do a lot of talking?
No. And believe me, if you were in that meeting, you wouldn't remember anyone else either.
All you can do is stare at Michael.
My agent and I walked out of there. We looked like we had just seen Casper the Ghost. And I mean, we were shook up.
Right.
And, you know, you get so shook up that you don't even know what to think. It is so scary to see a man who has done what he'd done to himself. Forget the nose, the chin implant, which was supposed to make him look white. I guess white people have these bizarre chins. I guess they think white people, plastic surgeons must think white people look like Jay Leno.
Well, I think he was doing this all himself. He'd go into the plastic surgeon and say, give me a cleft in my chin.
Right, like Kirk Douglas or something.
Yeah, like, I don't know why he wanted that.
He was like Frankenstein. He had the different parts of different people. And this guy, when I sat in that room with him, you couldn't even think straight. I didn't know what to say to him. I didn't know what to do. And he had nothing to say. I told you, we sat there. He had his nose taped with masking tape. God. Like white masking tape wrapped in a square, I can't even describe to you. And the tape was dangling because it was, I don't know, it was like hanging off his face, and he had Band-Aids on his fingers. And the Band-Aids had black ink all over them. I guess he had been reading the paper, and he'd touch his nose, and the tape would begin to turn black. It was white tape, but it turned black. And it was starting to unravel, and there was no nose under there. I mean, it was mystifying. Wow. You couldn't figure out what was going on. And as you're in this meeting, and it was, you know, described to me that this was during his first child molestation situation.
Yeah.
And it was described to me that I was going to have my audience get outraged. I was going to scream that Michael Jackson was being persecuted, and then I was going to tell my audience to take to the street, and then the plan would be hatched that I would go to the street with my audience, and millions of people would show up, and we would scream for Michael Jackson. And then finally, Michael Jackson wouldn't do an interview with me, but he would walk by our big protest and wave to us. And that was the big plan.
Wow.
And I said, look, guys.
Who has that plan?
And with that, then Sandy walked out of the room, and then Michael and my agent, myself, were all sitting there staring at each other. And I said, I've got to say something. Michael just stares at you. And I said, you know, Michael, I understand you're a meditator, or you were involved with Deepak Chopra. I knew that he knew Deepak Chopra. And he went, yeah. Deepak, yeah. Like that. Deepak, I said, well, you know, I am a fan of Deepak Chopra's. I've read some of his stuff, and I've, you know, I know of him, and, yeah, Deepak, good man, Deepak,
Brilliant.
This was the conversation. And then I just said, fuck this, I give up. So we stood and we stared at each other. I mean, we sat and stared at each other, and my agent stared. Nobody said anything, and Sandy came back in the room, and I said, guys, look, I've heard your plan, and I want to be honest with you. That's really not my style to say to my audience, let's take to the streets for Michael Jackson. I would like to do an interview with Michael Jackson. I would like to interview him, and I have a deal over at ABC, or I certainly know enough network people that I would go on a network and interview him for an hour. And all the people would see that he was standing up to my questions. I'm known as a pretty thorough interviewer and pretty tough on people if they have, you know, they're involved in a controversy. I'm not afraid to ask questions. And seeing as how Michael is innocent, I am sure he will have no problem answering my questions and standing up to me.
Perfect idea.
And they were like, you know.
Never mind.
Well, no, it was like, and so then they said,
Deepak Chopra.
Well, we'll get back to you, blah, 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 blah. And I told you, a couple of days later, they announced that Diane Sawyer was going to interview Michael Jackson, and I was, my idea was a good one. It's just that I think they were
gave
afraid.
It to someone else.
They gave it to Diane Sawyer, and we know the rest is history.
What was in it for you? Were they offering you anything? Like, were they going to give you money for this?
They weren't even interviewing me in an interview on radio with Michael Jackson after I took to the streets.
Right, nothing. Just a wave. He would walk by and wave.
Yeah, it was like I was being inducted into the army of Michael Jackson,
right.
and I would get the pleasure of seeing him walk by our big protest. Who even knows if he would have walked by? I would have looked like a real horse's ass if I went with this one. I said, guys might want to call Rick Dees. I think he might go for that. Rick Dees, or if there was a Ryan Seacrest at that point, I think they would have gone for that.
Yeah, maybe go get him.
Yeah, I mean, they would have jumped on the Michael Jackson bandwagon, but I wasn't going for it.